The galaxy was full of bright stars and shining worlds, but far away from the light drifted a dark space station. It had once been a research base, then a prison, and finally forgotten by everyone who built it. Its metal walls were eaten by rust. Its lights flickered like dying fireflies. The engines had stopped long ago, leaving it to float in silence around a dead moon. Inside this forgotten place lived one lonely creature that time had almost erased. It was the albino dragon. The creature had once been a legend told across the stars. Its scales were white as frost, its eyes red like burning rubies, and its wings could block the sun when it flew. Long ago, it was feared by soldiers and hunters. Whole fleets were built just to capture it. Many had failed, but one group of mercenaries had succeeded after a cruel trap. They chained the dragon deep inside this outpost, believing it would one day be used again as a weapon. But the wars ended, the mercenaries aged, and governments changed. The station was left behind, and the dragon was forgotten with it. Years passed. The walls gathered dust. The engines went silent. Only the slow breathing of the dragon echoed in the metal halls. Inside the largest chamber lay a cage made of old titanium beams. Thick chains wrapped around the dragon's neck, legs, and wings. The chains were covered in rust. Every move made them rattle like dead bells. The dragon's body was thin now. Its once powerful wings were torn and dull. Many of its scales had fallen off, leaving pale skin under them. When it tried to move, the pain reminded it of how long it had been trapped. The food machines stopped working long ago, so it survived by drinking condensation from the pipes and by sleeping to slow its hunger. The dragon had no name anymore. It had forgotten what others once called it. It did not know if anyone in the galaxy even remembered its story. Sometimes it tried to roar just to hear its own voice, but the sound came out weak and broken. The roar that once made armies run now sounded like a whisper lost in a cave. Above its cell, broken screens still flickered with strange blue light. They showed messages from a control room that no one was in. Old reports repeated on the loop. Subject stable. Containment secure. The words had played for decades with no one to read them. The dragon looked at them sometimes, not understanding why they still worked when everything else around it was dying. There was nothing to do but wait. It waited for time to end or for the metal to crumble. In its dreams, it saw open skies again. It saw itself flying above green lands and silver seas. But when it woke, the same cold ceiling waited above. The ceiling had scratches where it had once tried to break free. They stood as marks of the years it spent in failure. Sometimes the dragon counted them to remember how long it had been alive. The sound of dripping water filled the cell. A pipe above leaked every few seconds, creating small puddles. The dragon watched the drops fall. Each drop reminded it of the rain it once flew through when it was free. The memory made its heart ache, though it no longer knew why it still cared. Its heart was tired, but it kept beating. Outside the station, space was silent. No ships came near. The galaxy had new problems to worry about. Empires rose and fell. Humans expanded into new worlds, and old ruins became forgotten stories. To everyone else, this old station was nothing but a piece of junk. No one imagined that a living creature still waited inside. The dragon had no hope left. It did not even remember what hope felt like. It stopped dreaming of rescue long ago. All it wanted now was peace. Sometimes it tried to rest forever, but something deep inside would not let it. A small spark still burned even after years of loneliness. It was a quiet wish, the wish to be seen again. Not as a monster, not as a weapon, but as something alive. Inside the control room, one broken panel still worked. Every few days, a weak signal blinked through the galaxy. It was a distress code from centuries ago. No one had answered it in all that time. The message had become part of the background noise of space. But one day, that signal reached a human ship by chance. The ship was small, made for medical work and scientific study. It carried a team of veterinarians and biologists traveling through forgotten sectors to collect data on extinct species. Their leader was a young human woman named Mira. She loved to heal, not to harm. Her mission was to find traces of old life that once lived across the stars. When her ship picked up the signal, she became curious. The coordinates led to a place that was not marked on any map. She decided to check it. The crew thought it was a waste of time, but she insisted. They stopped near the old moon where the rusted station floated like a ghost. The outside of the station looked broken and cold. Mira looked through the window and felt sadness. Someone built this once with care, she said softly. Now it looks like a tomb. Her team refused to go inside. The scanners showed no life signs. and they feared the structure could collapse. But Mira was stubborn. She put on her suit, took her medical tools, and went alone. As she entered through a broken hatch, dust floated around her like tiny stars. Her flashlight cut through the dark, showing cracked walls and fallen pipes. Every step echoed like thunder in the silence. She reached the main corridor and saw old signs written in alien symbols. The air was dry and thin. Her helmet showed that oxygen was low, but still enough for short visits. As she walked deeper, she saw cages, broken machines, and empty containers. She felt the weight of time pressing down on her. It was a place of forgotten experiments. She wondered what kind of creatures had lived here once. Then she heard it, a low sound almost like breathing. She froze and looked around. The sound came again, deeper this time, like the slow heartbeat of something massive. Her flashlight shook in her hand as she followed the sound. It led her to a large sealed door. The door had heavy bolts and warning signs still glowed faintly. Her heart beat faster. Curiosity overcame fear. She used her scanner to open the door. The rusted lock cracked and fell. As the door slid open, the smell of old metal and dust filled the air. The light from her suit spread across the chamber, and she saw it. A huge creature lay curled in the center, covered in chains and rust. Its scales reflected the light like pale ice. For a moment she thought it was dead. Then its chest moved slowly. It was alive, her eyes widened in shock. She had studied thousands of species, but nothing like this. She stepped closer, unable to speak. The dragon lifted its head weakly. Its red eyes glowed for a second, then dimmed. It looked at her, confused, maybe frightened. It had not seen another living being for so long that it could not believe what stood before it. Mira lowered her weapon scanner to show she meant no harm. She whispered through her helmet, "It is all right. I am not here to hurt you." The dragon blinked. It understood nothing of her words, but her tone was calm and gentle. It watched her hand as she slowly moved closer to inspect the chains. She saw deep wounds under the metal. Some wounds were so old they had turned into scars. She felt anger toward whoever had done this. She could not understand why someone would lock away such a creature. She checked her scanner. The readings showed strong but unstable energy inside the dragon's body. Its heart rate was slow, like it was half asleep. The dragon let out a weak sound, something between a sigh and a growl. Mira took a step back but did not run. Her voice shook, yet she spoke again. "You poor thing. How long have you been here?" She knew the answer would not come, but saying it made her feel less alone. The dragon's eyes followed her as she moved. It saw kindness in her face. No one had ever looked at it that way before. Mira decided then that she could not leave it there. She touched her communicator and called her ship. Her team warned her to return, saying the place was dangerous, but she told them she found something important and needed time. She turned off the link before they could stop her. She walked back to the dragon and sat on the floor beside the cage. For a while they just stared at each other in silence. The dragon closed its eyes. It did not understand who this human was or why she had come, but something about her presence felt different. The air seemed warmer. The cold that had filled the room for so long began to fade. For the first time in many years it felt seen. Mira looked at the broken creature before her and made a quiet promise. She would not leave it to die in that cell. She did not yet know how she would free it, but she would find a way. Somewhere inside the dragon a spark of hope returned, small but alive. Far beyond the silent station, stars continued to burn, unaware that a meeting had just begun that would soon change the course of the galaxy. Mira sat on the cold floor of the metal chamber, her eyes fixed on the creature before her. The albino dragon did not move much. It lay half-curled, wings pressed tightly against its body, long neck stretched on the ground and breath shallow. The air around it carried the smell of old iron and dust. Mira's heart beat fast. She had seen many strange beings in her career as a veterinary scientist, but nothing came close to this. This creature was ancient, powerful, and yet it looked so fragile. She checked her oxygen level. It was enough for several more hours. She turned her flashlight toward the dragon's wounds. The chains had cut deep into its scales. Some scales were missing completely. Beneath them, the skin was raw and cracked. She could not believe anyone had treated a living creature like this. The dragon opened one eye. The red glow inside it was faint but alive. It looked at her, and for a moment their eyes met. Mira felt something strange, as if the creature was searching her mind, trying to understand who she was. She took a deep breath and whispered, "It is all right. I'm not your enemy." Her voice was soft and calm. She kept her movements slow so the creature would not feel threatened. She placed her medical scanner on the floor, showing the dragon that she carried no weapon. The dragon's eye followed her every move, but it did not attack. It had no strength left to fight anyone. Mira pulled a small cube from her pocket. The cube unfolded into a hovering drone that scanned the dragon's body. The results appeared on her wrist screen. Heart rate, blood flow, tissue decay, energy core readings. The numbers shocked her. This dragon should have been dead long ago. Its heart was weak, but there was something strange inside its body, some kind of energy that kept it alive. It was not only a creature of flesh. Something greater was inside it, something ancient. She touched her communicator again. "Base, are you receiving me?" Static answered. The walls of the old station blocked most signals. She tried again but got nothing. She realized she was completely alone with the dragon. For a long moment she said nothing. The only sound was the soft hiss of her oxygen and the slow breathing of the dragon. Then she stood up and began to walk around the cell. Her flashlight revealed symbols carved into the walls. They were alien marks, old and faded. Some looked like warnings, others like prayers. She wondered if the people who built this place had once worshipped the dragon before they feared it. She reached the control panel that operated the chains. It was broken, wires hanging loose, screens shattered. Still, she knelt beside it and tried to understand how it worked. She realized the chains were powered by an ancient containment field that used the dragon's own energy to stay locked. The more it tried to escape, the tighter the chains became. It was a cruel design. Whoever built it had wanted to break not just its body, but also its spirit. Mira sighed. She looked back at the creature. Its head had dropped again, eyes closed, breath slow and tired. She walked to its side, her boots making soft sounds on the dusty floor. She took out her medical kit and began cleaning one of the open wounds near its neck. The dragon flinched at first. Its tail twitched slightly, but it did not strike. When it felt the cool touch of her antiseptic spray, its breathing calmed. "Good," she said quietly. "You are doing fine. I am here to help." She worked for hours. She cleaned the worst wounds and applied healing patches. She used her scanner to map the internal damage. The creature had many broken bones and torn muscles. It was clear that it had once tried to fight its captors. Mira tried not to imagine the pain it had gone through. Every mark on its body told a story of battle and suffering. After a while, her oxygen alarm beeped. She checked the time. She had been inside for nearly 3 hours. She packed her kit and looked at the dragon one more time. "I will come back," she said. "You have my word." The dragon opened its eyes again and looked at her. For the first time it made a small sound, a deep rumble from its throat. It was not a growl. It sounded almost like a question. Mira smiled through her helmet. "I promise," she said softly, then turned to leave. She walked back through the silent corridors to her ship. When she entered, her team surrounded her with questions. "Did you find anything?" one asked. "Only ruins?" said another. Mira removed her helmet and took a deep breath. "No," she said. "I found life." They looked at her in disbelief. "Life out there? That station has been dead for hundreds of years." Mira nodded. "Not dead. Forgotten. There is something inside, something that should not exist anymore." Her crew wanted to leave. They said it was too dangerous. The structure was unstable and the creature could be a threat. But Mira refused. She told them she was a veterinary scientist, not a soldier. If a living being was suffering, she had a duty to help it. The others argued for hours, but in the end, she convinced them to stay in orbit while she continued her work alone. For the next few days, she returned to the station every morning. She brought medical supplies, energy packs, and food units. The dragon never attacked her. Each day she found it waiting in the same position, weak but watching her with quiet eyes. On the second day, she set up a small camp outside the cell. She connected her equipment to a portable generator. With careful work, she reactivated some of the broken systems. Lights flickered back to life in the ceiling and air filters began to hum again. The station still felt old and empty, but now it breathed again. Mira started speaking to the dragon as she worked. She told it stories of her home planet, of green forests and oceans that shone under twin suns. She did not know if the dragon understood her words, but she kept talking anyway. Her voice filled the silence of the cell. "Back home, I used to take care of all kinds of creatures," she said one day as she cleaned a wound near the dragon's shoulder. "None of them were as big as you, of course, but they all wanted the same thing. To be treated kindly." The dragon's tail moved slightly. Its eyes followed her movements. She smiled. You understand me, don't you? You know I'm not here to hurt you. That evening, she gave it its first real meal in years. She mixed a nutrient solution that could work for both organic and energy-based life forms. She placed the container near its mouth and waited. At first, the dragon ignored it, suspicious. But when the smell reached its nose, it opened its mouth slightly and drank. Mira felt joy rush through her. You see, she said softly, you are not alone anymore. Each visit made the dragon stronger. Its eyes began to shine brighter. The scales around its neck started to regrow, smooth and white like polished glass. It began to move a little more, stretching its claws and wings when she entered. The sound of chains clinking filled the air, and every time she heard it, Mira's heart hurt. She wanted to break them, but did not yet know how. One night after a long day of work, she sat beside the dragon and spoke through the quiet hum of the lights. I need to call you something, she said. I cannot just keep saying dragon. How about Alan? It means light in an old human language. The dragon tilted its head as if it was listening. Mira smiled. Alan it is, then. From that day, she began calling it Alan. The name brought warmth to the cold room. Whenever she said it, the dragon raised its head slightly as if answering to it. Days passed, and Alan started to trust her more. It no longer growled or flinched when she touched the chains. Mira learned that the creature could understand emotions even if not words. When she was calm, it was calm. When she was worried, it became restless too. One afternoon, she decided to record a log. She sat near the cell with her tablet. Log entry 21, she said. Subject Alan shows increasing signs of recovery. Energy levels rising. Cognitive response improving. The creature is not aggressive. I believe it has suffered not only physically but also emotionally. It needs compassion as much as healing. As she finished her recording, she looked at Alan and felt something deep in her heart. It was no longer just a study or a mission. It was personal now. She had found something worth saving, not because it was rare, but because it was alive and forgotten. That night, when she was about to leave, Alan made a soft sound again. It was gentle, almost like a word. Mira stopped and turned. She looked into its eyes and saw gratitude. She smiled and said, You are welcome, Alan. For the first time in many years, a creature once feared across the stars began to trust again. And in that forgotten corner of the galaxy, hope was reborn between a human who refused to walk away and a dragon who had waited too long to be seen. Mira's small camp inside the ruined station had begun to look like a medical outpost. Wires ran along the walls, screens glowed faintly, and machines hummed with soft life. What was once a dark, silent prison now had the quiet rhythm of care. Every day she worked to repair both the dragon's body and the place itself. Every night she slept in her ship and returned at dawn with new supplies. The dragon she had named Alan was changing. Its scales, once dull and cracked, had begun to glow with a faint light. The light shimmered softly whenever Mira touched it. The creature's breath, which used to sound heavy and broken, was now calm and steady. Its red eyes no longer looked empty. When Mira entered the room, it raised its head and watched her with a sense of recognition. On the 10th day, Mira stood beside the cage, scanning the data on her wrist. She looked at Alan and said, Your heart rate is strong now. That is good. You are healing faster than I expected. Alan's eyes blinked slowly as if trying to understand her. It tilted its head to the side and made a deep rumbling sound that echoed softly around the chamber. Mira smiled. Yes, I will take that as a thank you. She had begun to learn the meaning of some of Alan's sounds. There was a low hum when it was calm, a higher rumble when it was in pain, and a short growl when it was curious. Over time, they started to communicate through gestures and tone. It was not words, but it was understanding. Mira walked closer to the control panel again. The chains were still attached, powered by the old containment field. She studied the readings and sighed. I want to free you, Alan, but these locks are not like anything I have seen before. They are linked to your energy core. If I disable them the wrong way, they might harm you. The dragon made a low sound that could have been a warning or a reassurance. Mira stepped closer and touched one of the chains gently. She could feel a pulse running through it, faint but alive. It was like the metal was drinking from Alan's power. That explained why the creature had grown weaker over the years. The prison had been feeding on its strength. She spent hours studying the mechanism. Her small robot assistant, Luna, floated beside her, flashing a soft blue light. Warning, it said. Containment energy unstable. Suggest no interference. Mira looked up at the machine and said, I know, Luna, but if I do nothing, this creature will never be free. We cannot just patch wounds. We must heal the cause. Luna blinked in response. Affirmative. Risk level high. Mira smiled a little. When has that ever stopped us before? She worked through the night, connecting her tools to the broken control panel. Sparks flew as she tried to reroute the energy lines. The dragon watched her quietly, eyes glowing brighter whenever her tools sparked. She knew it could sense the energy flowing through the room. When she grew tired, she sat near its tail and leaned against the wall. I think I am close, she said softly. Soon you will not need those chains anymore. The dragon looked at her with slow, gentle eyes. It let out a breath that made the air warm around her. She smiled and felt safe, even though she sat beside something that could destroy ships if it wished. But Mira did not see a monster. She saw a creature that had been hurt, just like so many animals she had cared for before. The next day, her team contacted her through the communicator. Their voices sounded nervous. Mira, you have been spending too much time down there. The council wants a report. What are you doing with that thing? Mira frowned. It is not a thing. It is a living being, and I am helping it. The voice on the other end hesitated. You know the rules. Large bioenergy creatures are restricted. If someone finds out you revived one, they might send military units to secure it. I will deal with that if it happens. Mira replied firmly. Right now this creature needs care, not fear. She ended the call and turned off the communicator. She could not risk anyone interfering. Over the following days she continued her repairs. Alan's body healed faster now. It began to stretch its wings again, though the chains still limited movement. Whenever she arrived with food or medical supplies, it greeted her with a deep sound that shook the walls. At first she was afraid it was angry, but she soon learned that it was a kind of welcome. Mira started reading aloud from her old digital books during breaks. She read stories about Earth, about oceans and mountains, about the beauty of freedom. Alan listened quietly, eyes half closed. It seemed to enjoy the sound of her voice. One afternoon, while she read, she noticed something strange. The energy readings on her scanner began to rise. The dragon's heart rate spiked slightly, but it did not seem in pain. The glowing light under its scales grew brighter. Mira looked up. What is happening to you? She whispered. Alan moved slightly, lifting its head higher than usual. Its eyes shone like twin suns. Then, very slowly, it opened its mouth and spoke. The voice was deep, echoing through the chamber like thunder rolling over the sea. Human, it said, the word heavy and broken but clear. Why? Mira froze in shock. Her mind took a moment to accept what she had heard. You can speak, she said softly. The dragon's voice came again, slow and rough. Long time, no speak. No need, you help, why? Her heart raced, but she smiled. Because you are alive. Because you were left here alone and no one deserves that. The dragon blinked, trying to understand her kindness. It had been caged for so long that it could not believe someone would help without wanting something in return. It lowered its head until its eyes met hers. You, not afraid? Mira shook her head. No, you are not my enemy. The dragon breathed deeply, a sound that filled the whole chamber. Long ago, all feared me, said I bring ruin, but I never wished war. They came, they chained. I burned, then I slept. She listened quietly, realizing she was hearing a story from another time, from the age before most modern civilizations. This creature had lived through wars that had shaped the galaxy. Mira said, Then you were not the monster they said you were. The dragon's eyes darkened. Monster is easy word. Easier than truth, she nodded. Then I will learn the truth from you. But first we must free you from these chains. For the first time, Alan's expression changed. It looked surprised. Free? Yes, Mira said. Free. The dragon closed its eyes for a moment. It had not heard that word spoken with meaning in a very long time. When it opened them again, a faint glow surrounded its body. The chains rattled softly as if reacting to its energy. Mira stood up and placed her hand on one of the control cables. We can do this together, she said. The dragon's deep voice came again. You risk much. They will not like you saving me, Mira smiled. Then they can dislike it. I do not need their permission to be kind. She returned to her tools, guided by the dragon's knowledge of the old energy systems. Alan remembered how the chains worked. It explained in broken human words that the locks were tied to its life force. They could only be opened if both energies aligned. It meant that Mira had to sync her medical generator with the dragon's pulse. It was dangerous. If she failed, both could be hurt. But she did not hesitate. She placed her palm against one of the chains. "I will not hurt you," she whispered. Alan looked at her, eyes glowing softly. "Then we trust," it said. The generator hummed as she activated the sync. The room filled with light. Energy crackled across the walls, dancing like lightning. The dragon roared, not in pain but in release. The chains began to glow red, then white. Mira felt the vibration through her whole body. The air shimmered. One by one, the locks weakened. When it was over, she fell to her knees, breathing hard. The chains had not yet broken, but their glow had dimmed. The process had weakened the field that held them together. She looked up and smiled. "We did it, Alan. Not completely free yet, but close." The dragon lowered its head near her and spoke softly. "You keep promise." "Yes," she said. "Always." The dragon closed its eyes and let out a long breath. It was the sound of peace, something it had not felt in centuries. Mira leaned against the wall, exhausted but proud. She looked at the great creature and whispered, "We will finish this. I swear it." Alan looked at her with gentle eyes that glowed like warm fire. For the first time since it was captured, it felt something new. It felt friendship. Outside, far beyond the silent station, the galaxy still turned. But deep inside that forgotten ruin, a bond was forming that would soon shake the stars. The old space station floated quietly above the dead moon, half hidden by clouds of dust and starlight. Inside, Mira continued her work. Each passing day brought new progress. The chains that once held Alan were growing weaker. The dragon's strength was returning, and with it came memories that had long been buried. Mira noticed how Alan sometimes stared into the distance, eyes fixed on nothing. When she asked what he was thinking, he often said nothing, only that the stars were whispering again. She did not understand his words, but she could feel the weight behind them. That morning she arrived with fresh energy cells and medical supplies. Her small robot Luna followed closely behind. The moment she entered the chamber, Alan lifted his head. His eyes glowed faintly, reflecting the light from her suit. "Good morning, Alan," she said. "How are you feeling?" The dragon moved its wings slightly. The chains rattled but no longer glowed with power. "Better," he said slowly. His voice was still deep and heavy, but it sounded steadier than before. "Your work heals not just body but heart," Mira smiled. "That means a lot. You deserve peace." Before she could continue, Luna beeped suddenly. The little robot's sensors flashed red. "Warning," it said. "Unidentified ships approaching Sector 12. Estimated arrival in 30 minutes. Mira froze. She rushed to her wrist display and opened the scanner feed. Several objects were moving toward the station. They were small ships, fast and armed. Her heart sank. "Alan, someone is coming." The dragon's eyes narrowed. His body tensed and a low growl filled the room. "Hunters," he said. "Hunters?" Mira asked. "They came long ago. The ones who trapped me. I feel their mark." Mira's stomach turned cold. She ran to her communicator and tried to contact her team. Static filled the line. "Luna, boost signal." Attempting, the robot replied, but the interference was strong. The approaching ships were jamming communications. Mira looked at Alan, fear flashing in her eyes. "They cannot find you like this. If they see you alive, they will take you again or worse." Alan lowered his head. "Then we fight." "You are still weak," she said firmly. "You need time." He stared at her. "No more chains. No more cages," the deep voice echoed through the room. Mira knew she could not stop him if he chose to fight. She only hoped to help him survive. She ran to the control panel and opened the outer camera feed. The hunters' ships were now in visual range. They bore markings of an old mercenary guild, the same one that had captured Alan centuries ago. Their leader, a tall alien with silver skin named Kor, stood on the bridge of the lead ship. Kor looked at the station through his display. "So the ghost signal was real," he said. "After all these years, the dragon still lives. Imagine the credits for bringing it back." His crew cheered, hungry for profit and fame. Mira watched the ships draw closer. She clenched her fists. "I cannot let them take him again." She turned to Alan. "Listen to me. If you fight, they will destroy this whole station. I have another way. I can overload the docking systems and trap them long enough for us to escape." Alan looked down at her small human form. "You would risk your life for me again?" "Yes," she said without hesitation. "Because you never deserved what they did to you. And because you are my friend." The dragon's eyes softened. "Then we stand together. The first blast hit the outer hull. The impact shook the entire station. Dust and metal fragments rained from the ceiling. Mira stumbled but caught herself on the rail. "Luna, activate internal shields," she shouted. "Shields at 20%, the robot replied. "Good enough," Mira said. "Alan, I need you to gather your strength. I will disable the power limiters." She ran to the main generator, pulling out glowing cables and rerouting the current. Sparks burst around her as she worked. The energy in the room shifted. The dim lights brightened to blinding white. Alan raised his head and let out a slow, deep breath. The glow beneath his scales grew stronger, flowing like molten light. The chains trembled. With a loud metallic crack, one of them snapped. The sound echoed through the station. Mira covered her ears as the vibration shook the floor. Alan spread his wings as far as he could. Another chain broke, sending shards of rusted metal flying. Mira stepped back, watching in awe. "You can do it," she said. "You are almost free." Alan roared, a sound that shook every wall in the station. The roar reached space itself, carried by the vibrations of the metal. The hunters heard it through their comms and felt a chill. Kor grinned. "It is awake. Prepare to strike." Dozens of energy blasts fired toward the station. Explosions tore through the outer hull. Mira's ship, still docked, shook violently. She knew she had only minutes before the structure would fall apart. She turned to Alan. "We must move now. Can you fly?" The dragon looked at her. "Yes, but you must ride with me." Mira hesitated only for a second. "Then let's do it." She grabbed her equipment and climbed onto his back, securing herself with a magnetic strap. The dragon turned his head slightly. "Hold tight." With one final roar, he shattered the remaining chains. The sound was like thunder. The floor cracked under his claws. Then, with a burst of white fire from his mouth, he broke through the ceiling. Debris scattered in every direction as Alan soared into the open void for the first time in centuries. His wings spread wide, catching the faint sunlight from the nearby star. For a moment, the galaxy seemed to stop and watch the rebirth of a legend. Mira held tightly as they flew through the broken hull. The cold wind of space rushed against her suit. She looked around and saw the hunters' ships approaching fast. "They are locking weapons," Luna warned through her communicator. "Alan, take evasive flight," Mira shouted. The dragon banked hard to the side, his wings cutting through the thin atmosphere of the moon. Energy bolts streaked past them, lighting up the darkness. Alan twisted, diving between debris and meteors. He was weak but still faster than most ships. Kor growled as his target slipped away. "Fire everything. Do not let it escape." The hunter's ship spread out, surrounding the dragon. Alan turned sharply and released a blast of white flame. The fire hit one of the enemy ships, melting its armor instantly. The explosion lit up the sky. Mira could feel the heat through her suit. "That was amazing," she said. Alan's deep voice came through the roar of battle. "They hunted me for centuries. No more." Another wave of enemy fire came at them. Mira looked at her scanner. "We are outnumbered. We need cover." Alan turned toward the shadow of the moon. "Then we fly through the storm." He dove toward the moon's surface, where strong magnetic storms crackled with blue light. The hunters followed, but their systems began to fail as the magnetic energy grew stronger. One by one, their weapons flickered and went dark. Inside the storm, Alan weaved through the lightning. The electric arcs danced across his wings, feeding his energy rather than draining it. Mira realized the storm's power was restoring him. "You are absorbing it," she said. "Yes," Alan replied. "This storm is life to me. The energy of stars runs through it." When they emerged on the other side, Alan's scales were shining like glass. His eyes burned bright red again. His wings spread wider, each beat sending ripples of power through the thin atmosphere. The hunters' ships were still behind them, though several were damaged. Kor's voice came through a wide-band transmission. "You cannot hide, beast. You belong to us." Mira turned on her communicator. "He belongs to no one," she said. "You left him to die. Now he is free." Kor laughed coldly. "Then you will die beside your pet." Before Mira could respond, Alan spoke into the comm channel. His voice filled every speaker, deep and commanding. "You took my freedom once. You will never take it again." He turned sharply and faced the fleet head-on. Energy built around his chest, bright and pure. Mira shielded her eyes as a beam of white fire erupted from his mouth. The blast cut through the lead ship, splitting it in two. The explosion sent waves of light through the darkness. The remaining ships tried to retreat, but Alan was already upon them. With swift movements and blasts of energy, he destroyed their weapons one by one. When it was over, silence filled the void. The hunters were gone, their ships drifting in ruin. Alan hovered in space, wings beating slowly. Mira sat on his back, breathless and speechless. She looked at the stars around them. For the first time, the dragon was flying free. Alan turned his head slightly. "You saved me, Mira. You gave me back the sky." Mira smiled, tears in her eyes. "You saved yourself. I only reminded you what you were." The dragon looked toward the horizon. "The galaxy will know I live. They will come again. Then we will face them," she said. "Together," he nodded. "Together." They flew toward a distant planet, leaving the broken station and burning ships behind. The stars shone brighter around them, as if welcoming the dragon back home. Far below, the moon remained silent, but for the first time in many centuries, its surface reflected the light of freedom. The albino dragon, once a prisoner, now soared beside the human who had taught him hope again. The stars stretched endlessly around Mira and Alan as they flew away from the ruins of the station. The moon below shrank into the distance, a pale memory of a place that had once been a prison. Mira sat firmly on the dragon's back, gripping the straps, and marveled at the sight. For the first time in her life, she felt completely small and completely safe at the same time. Alan's wings cut through the space like sails of light. His scales shimmered, reflecting starlight, and the energy flowing through him pulsed like a living heartbeat. Mira could feel it through her body. The warmth of life, raw and strong, filled her. She smiled as she realized that the dragon was no longer weak, no longer afraid. The chains were gone, replaced by freedom and trust. "Alan," she said softly, "you are stronger than anyone thought. You survived centuries of solitude and cruelty. Now you can finally live." The dragon's deep eyes met hers. "I have learned many things in my prison. Patience, silence, endurance. But I have forgotten what joy feels like. Until now." Mira reached out, brushing her hand along his neck. "Then we will discover joy together. The galaxy has so much to show you." Alan let out a slow, rumbling sound, almost like a laugh. The sound resonated through Mira's chest. It was a pure, unrestrained expression of happiness that the station had never heard. As they traveled through the galaxy, Mira guided Alan toward remote and untouched worlds. The first planet they arrived at was covered with vast green forests, blue rivers, and mountains that stretched above the clouds. Mira had visited it once as a young vet, studying the life forms there. Now she wanted to share it with Alan. He landed in a clearing, folding his massive wings carefully. The ground trembled slightly under his weight. Mira stepped down and took in the scent of fresh air. It smelled like life itself, clean and sweet. Alan lowered his head to the ground, touching the grass with his nose. "I have never smelled such freedom," he said. He inhaled deeply, then raised his wings and took flight again, circling above the forests. "The wind moves differently here," he added. Mira laughed softly, watching the dragon soar. "It is different everywhere. Every planet has its own rhythm. You will learn them all." Over the following weeks, Mira and Alan explored many worlds. Alan learned to control his strength, to breathe fire without harming the environment, and to interact with creatures smaller and weaker than himself. Mira guided him with patience, teaching him that his power was no longer a curse but a gift. On one world covered with silver lakes, Alan perched beside Mira as she studied aquatic creatures. He watched her work with fascination, tilting his massive head as she used delicate instruments to examine tiny fish. "You handle life with care," he said. "Even the smallest being matters." "Yes," Mira replied. "Every life is important. That is why I cannot ignore those who suffer." Alan's deep voice was quiet. "I understand now. I was feared, hated. They forgot I was alive. You remembered." Mira placed a hand on his jaw. "I promised, and I keep my promises. You are not alone anymore." One day, while traveling near a bright star system, Alan sensed danger long before Mira did. His wings stiffened and his eyes glowed red. Mira noticed the shift in his posture. "What is it?" she asked. "Hunters," he said, voice low. "Old marks. Some from long ago, some new. They remember." Mira's heart clenched. "We cannot fight them forever. We need allies," Alan nodded. "Then we show them that I am not alone. You are my ally." Together they flew to a neutral planet, one that hosted a council of interstellar species. Mira introduced Alan carefully, explaining his story and the injustice he had suffered. Many of the council members had never seen a dragon, let alone one of such size and intelligence. At first there was fear. Whispers ran through the hall. But Mira spoke with calm determination. Alan is no monster. He has been wronged. He does not wish to harm anyone. He only wants to live free. Alan spoke then, his deep voice filling the chamber. I will not fight unless I must. I seek peace. But I will defend life if it is threatened. Those who tried to cage me will learn that I am not forgotten. The council was silent for a long moment. Then one elder stepped forward. A tall, blue-skinned alien named Veer. This creature has suffered, Veer said. And yet it seeks peace. That is strength greater than any weapon. We accept your presence, Alan, and we offer protection. Alan lowered his massive head in acknowledgement. Mira felt pride swell in her chest. He had gone from prisoner to protector, from hunted to guardian. After gaining the council's support, Mira and Alan returned to explore more worlds. They visited planets devastated by past wars, helping communities rebuild. Alan used his strength to move fallen structures, clear debris, and protect settlers from natural disasters. Everywhere they went, he became a symbol of hope. Mira noticed the change in the dragon. Where once his eyes had held pain and doubt, now they held wisdom and compassion. He had learned to trust again, to feel joy, and to use his power to help rather than harm. One evening, as they rested on a cliff overlooking a purple ocean, Mira watched the sunset paint the sky with colors she had never imagined. Alan sat beside her, wings folded, tail curled gently around the rocks. You have changed the galaxy, Mira, Alan said softly, and you have changed me. Mira smiled, placing her hand on his scales. No, Alan, you changed yourself. I only showed you that someone cared. He closed his eyes, letting the wind ruffle his mane of soft white scales. I will never forget, he said. They continued their travels, always seeking to help those in need. Mira documented their journey, recording the healing of the dragon, the liberation of forgotten creatures, and the hope that spread across the galaxy because of one human's compassion. News of the albino dragon and the human vet spread quickly. Where once fear had dominated stories of dragons, now hope filled the words. Children in far-off worlds drew pictures of him soaring through the skies, protecting the weak. Scientists studied his energy patterns to understand the balance between strength and kindness. Warriors whispered his name as a reminder that even the strongest could choose mercy. Mira often looked at Alan as he slept beside her in quiet coves or open meadows. She thought about the day she had first seen him chained and broken. She had not imagined he would become a guardian of worlds, a symbol of life's resilience. Yet here he was, alive, strong, and free. Do you remember that cell? She asked softly one night. Alan opened one eye. I remember the cold, the silence, the chains, but I do not remember fear anymore. Good, Mira said, because it belongs to the past now. Alan lifted his head, looking at the stars. Then let us move forward. Together. Mira nodded, her heart full. Together. Over the months they became legends. The albino dragon who had been neglected by the galaxy now soared alongside a human who refused to look away. They inspired countless others to act with kindness, courage, and hope. The galaxy had learned that no life, no matter how ancient or strange, should ever be forgotten. And so, Mira and Alan continued their journey, leaving behind the shadows of old prisons and cruel hunters. They moved from world to world, not as conquerors, not as weapons, but as healers and protectors. Everywhere they went, life flourished. Crops grew where the dragon had cleared debris. Communities rebuilt where his power had moved mountains. Creatures once feared now found safety, and in the hearts of all who met them, hope took root. Alan, the albino dragon, had been chained and abandoned, but now he flew free, carrying the light of life across the stars. Mira, the human bit, had risked everything to save him, and in doing so, she reminded the galaxy that compassion could change even the darkest corners. As they soared toward another star system, Mira looked at the dragon beneath her. This is only the beginning, Alan, she said. Alan's deep voice rumbled softly, filled with warmth and strength. Yes, and this time we face it together, always. The stars shone brighter as the two of them flew onward, a human and a dragon united, a symbol that hope and courage could heal even the most forgotten lives. The galaxy would never forget them again.